Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new edition of Daily to Dynasty. I am Craig Gorbanoff. You can follow me on Twitter at cgorbs94. Joined by Rich at Coda522 and Marcus making the grand return to Daily to Dynasty after a week off at EMTaylor29. This is going to be a fun show. Another NFL week has come and passed. The Tennessee Titans are trying to cancel the NFL season, but that's okay. We won't let them. We'll keep watching football, and hopefully we get a little Tuesday night football coming up next week. I don't know. That'll be interesting. Either way, Tennessee Titans and Pittsburgh Steelers game is currently postponed, and we'll have to keep our eyes on that situation. I feel a little burnt by Tennessee personally because I was touting them as a fantasy option last week. They had an okay game, Derrick Henry did, but not quite as good all around as I predicted. And now they got the old COVID-19. So way to go, Tennessee. If you want to interact with the show a little bit more, head on over to anchor.fm/daily2dynasty, and you can leave us a nice, friendly voicemail, and we'll answer your fantasy questions live on this show. And I already mentioned some of our social medias, but of course you can follow the show at Daily to Dynasty. And fellas, let's just jump right into it, and let's talk about how there are no fantasy options from Thursday Night Football. We're recording this Wednesday at 9 p.m., and I firmly believe that you should not watch this game, bet this game, or start anyone from either team. Does anyone feel differently?
Let's go Broncos.
I think it's a few players. The Jets defense hasn't been that good. So on the Jets side, I probably wouldn't start anybody. But Melvin Gordon, Noah Fant, they could be good options. Noah Fant could be a security blanket for this QB. They may not want him to pass a lot, so they can get the ball to Melvin Gordon. Those are two decent options.
I mean, honestly, the only two I'd start are the defenses because both teams are hideous. Like, offensively, they're just terrible. So you can stream the Jets or the Broncos defense. I know I'm playing the Broncos defense against my own team, and there's no shame in winning. So, as far as this game, it's no one wants to win. So I'm gonna be rooting indifferently. I don't even know what I'm gonna do on Thursday night. I'm gonna be like, "Yay, we're losing! Yay, we're winning!" I don't know. It's a weird season, weird game.
Weird season, weird game, weird time to be alive. Let's head on over to Sunday, though, where I think there are some actually good options. And let's start with the 2-1 Baltimore Ravens suffering a pretty embarrassing loss on Monday Night Football, I think, to the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll face off against the first place in the NFC East, Washington football team.
That sounds weird.
It does sound weird, and I am going to go out on a limb, and I think Washington wins the NFC East this season.
Gross.
I think everyone in that division is so bad. I get the Cowboys are, like, supposed to be good, but they haven't actually looked good to me in, like, any game. And I think Washington will probably end up winning this division. They actually compete in all of their games. Like, They lost by a big margin, but like they show up and they play hard, and I gotta respect that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a repeat of a few years ago when, or going back when it was the NFC West when the Seahawks won at 7-9. I mean that whole division is trash this year, but I still got to go with the Cowboys because it's like the cleanest of the trash. They definitely have the talent, but I mean they can't close games. But I mean, as far as this game goes, you could just chalk it up to a Baltimore win. There's no way that the Redskins are winning this game. I don't know. Oh my God, every week the Washington football team. But yeah, I mean, the Ravens. I'm going to play their defense this week. I'm playing Mark Andrews. I think he's going to bounce back because he had one of the worst games of his career against the Chiefs. He dropped everything. Lamar is going to have to bounce back, and I think he will. But on the Washington side of things, I don't really want to play anyone. Scary Terry is fine, but I mean, they're probably going to try to eliminate him. So I think you're better off just skipping the football team in general and just focusing on Baltimore this week. I would not play Hollywood Brown after what he just did against the Chiefs. I mean, he was supposed to be the featured guy, and he couldn't catch anything either. So Lamar, Mark Andrews, defense, bing, bang, boom. Let's go.
Yeah, I think Baltimore's going to be out here looking for a little revenge. I'm a little concerned at their ability to compete with Kansas City, honestly, after that performance last week. But a team like Washington, I think they'll sweep the floor with. I think you could pretty much start anyone on Baltimore's offense. I don't love their wide receivers. I'll be transparent. I don't think they have any true like number one type receivers. Even Hollywood Brown, like he's kind of like a hot some weeks. He's very streaky, but not my favorite. Marcus, any difference of opinions here?
Not at all. I mean, Baltimore's offense, start them. I think they're going to look to get back on track. I think Mark Ingram is going to get back on track also. It's a name that wasn't mentioned. But I'm with you guys. Other than Andrews, I don't think I'm going to start anybody in the passing game outside of Andrews. Andrews, Lamar, and Ingram will probably be the three top fantasy earners from Baltimore.
And probably the Ravens defense. I see them scoring once, probably at least, in this game. So also additionally, we can talk about the betting line there. The Ravens are 13-point favorites in this game. That is not I get they probably are 2 touchdowns better than Washington, but when there's a spread over 10, to me, I don't know. I don't want to touch it. It's kind of too dicey.
Vegas wants you to bet at that much. Vegas wants you to take the Ravens. So
yeah,
I mean, Ron Rivera is not going to let his team lose big 2 weeks straight, right? But Ravens are going to win.
Exactly. So let's head on over to the Tampa Bay Bucks hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm not sure who will be starting at quarterback for this game. I haven't had the chance to look. I don't know if you guys are aware if it'll be Justin Herbert or if Tyrod Taylor is back yet. Justin Herbert has looked really strong, I thought, the last 2 weeks. I mean, listen, they're a 1-2 team, but they've played very competitively. I think they've looked good, especially considering that, we got a visitor.
Sorry.
We got a visitor. No, it's all good. We got a friend. That is the greatest cameo on this show. I'm just going to keep rolling with it, though.
There you go.
There he is. There he is. And the Bucks on the other side, right? They looked great last week. They were 5.5-point favorites last week, and they just killed the Broncos. I don't know why that line was so low. Leonard Fournette did not look good. He got about 7 fantasy points. They did not use him on the 1-yard line. It was the Mike Evans show, down late. I think what I've learned from the Tampa Bay offense, and really what I learned from New England many years ago too, is Tom Brady just likes to spread the wealth too much for you to reliably think that any one of these people are going to be consistently the guy. I think he spreads the ball around a lot and just really, whoever's the hot hand is going to feed. But there's no way of really predicting that week in and week out. So from a fantasy perspective, I don't know, like if you have the guys, if you invested a high draft pick in like a Mike Evans, you start him. But I would shy away from the Leonard Fournettes and some other Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, with Godwin being out this week, I think Mike Evans, he's going to be forced to be the guy. I mean, because if you look behind Mike Evans, they have Scotty Miller as the wide receiver too, which, I mean, he's a nice, gadget player, but I think Mike Evans is going to have a really good game this week. As far as the running backs go, like you said, they have 2 underwhelming running backs. But I mean, I really like their defense so far. The Buccaneers are, a balanced team. And on the Chargers side of things, Herbert's probably going to start just based on the injury to Tyrod. I mean, it's hard to come back 2 weeks later after your lung was punctured. But Mike Williams to me is the biggest disappointment on that team this year. He's been terrible all year round. To the point where Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry and Eckler have to pick up his slack. I would start Eckler every single week. I think him and Hunter Henry have a good connection with Herbert and Henry, but it's kind of up and down last week. But for me, I mean, those are the 2 guys, Hunter Henry and Eckler for the Chargers. And the Buccaneers, I would do Mike Evans and the Tampa Bay defense this week.
And the Bucks are 7.5-point favorites against the Chargers. Again, there was a big underlay in Vegas last week. But I don't know. The Chargers are really unpredictable. They took the Chiefs, all the way to a last-second field goal. I would probably take the Chargers plus 7.5. I don't think they win, but I think they find a way to keep it close again. Marcus, who are your fantasy standouts, or do you have any bets?
Fantasy standouts, of course, Austin Eckler. He's averaging 7.5 targets with Justin Herbert. Seems to be doing really well. The Bucs have given out fifth most receiving yards to running backs this year, so he's always a good start. He's just going to do his thing. He's a feature back, and I would say Hunter Henry. I would probably sit him. He had 50 yards against the Panthers, and the Tampa Bay Bucs haven't allowed a touchdown to a tight end yet this season. So that trend might continue. He has the talent to, break out and have a good game, but as of right now, the trend is the Bucs don't allow touchdowns to tight ends, and 50 yards is just, I'm not really that impressed. I think he's too talented to just be held to 50 yards. So those would be my two on the Chargers. With Tampa Bay, like you said, Tom Brady kind of spreads the wealth around. Outside of him having Randy Moss that year, and Julian Edelman is kind of whoever's hot gets the ball. So you really can't focus on many people. Evans may get targeted, or he may run the ball a lot. You just never know. But Brady should be a good option. I think he can run the ball with Fournette, Scotty Miller, Mike Evans, the plethora of tight ends that they got. So I think he'll be a good option too.
Absolutely. Let's head on over to the Seattle Seahawks, who offensively are the best, to me, the best team in football. Defensively, it's a different conversation, but Russell Wilson is looking like he's on a whole other playing field than everyone else. I think he's finally starting to get that respect and recognition that he's been deserving for the last couple of seasons. But wow, that offense just is seemingly scoring at will whenever they want, however they want it. The defense is a liability. They do seem to make that last play at the end of the game, though, to hold on. I don't know how long a team can sustain that, but I don't think they'll have to worry about it this week against the Miami Dolphins. This is a huge mismatch, in my opinion. I think anyone on the Seahawks is a good start here offensively, fantasy-wise. DK Metcalf, I'm so mad at. He should have had 2 touchdowns last week. He celebrated a little early. I don't think he'll do that again. He's too talented for that. Tyler Lockett got in the end zone 3 times last week. Russell Wilson is just throwing dimes, guys. He's just throwing dimes left and right. I think that the Seahawks win this one. They win this one pretty big. It's only a 6.5-point line for Seattle. To me, this is like the lock of the week. Put $20 on it because I think they win it by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, but Fitzmagic always makes it interesting. Whenever there's a big team coming into town, he always plays his best. But Seattle's just going to be too much. I do think Fitzpatrick probably has a good game just based on how much passing yards they've given up. Through 3 games, the Seattle Seahawks have given up 1,292 yards through the air, which is insane. That's over 400 yards a game. So I think Fitzmagic, he's going to be Fitzmagic. But as far as Seattle, like you said, start everyone. And then on the Miami side, Gaskin could be a good start. Gesicki could be a good, tight end fill in, especially, if you're not confident in Hunter Henry, if you have Gesicki, he might be someone to throw in there this week. And then honestly, if someone's down, if you have like a Jimmy G as your starter who might not be back this week, throw in Fitzpatrick this week, just based on the trend. They're going to be down. He's going to have to sling it, but Seattle's going to win this by a lot more than 6.5. So make it $200, not 20.
No, totally. And, additionally, from a FanDuel perspective, players from Miami might be someone you want to flirt with from a budget stack perspective, depending on where you're looking to spend your money on, on other positions. If you're someone who likes to spend big at tight end and you want Travis Kelce, maybe you take a Devontae Parker or someone like that from the Dolphins to try and get some value out of your salary cap. Marcus, what about you? Anything in this game?
Fitzmagic, Seattle, like we said, they getting up a lot of pass yards, at least 24 points in back-to-back games to QBs. My thing with Fitzpatrick, let me start calling him that. My thing with him is, one of these games he's going to throw like 8 interceptions or something like that. He's going to have one of those meltdown games.
And I feel like it's this one.
You never know when it's coming.
I feel like he can't keep up with Russell Wilson. Like, he's
Right.
going to try to, and he might do it for like a quarter and a half.
Mhm.
But Russell Wilson's going to keep throwing touchdowns, and eventually the Harvard education runs out, and he's no longer able to read a defense.
Yeah, like Fitztragic comes out and he just disappears. So you never know, but I mean, with their pass defense, this might be one of those good games. And Devontae Parker, he could be a good start. If Fitzmagic goes off, Parker could go off because, again, that defense is really bad. And then on Seattle, you just start them all. 14 touchdowns, 1 interception so far for Russ. MVP is in his future if he keeps it up.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your 0-3 Minnesota Vikings.
We can skip that. Really.
Well, they're playing another 0-3 team, the Houston Texans, and I think if in August, had we asked, would you think either of these teams would be 0-3, we'd be having a different conversation. Maybe Houston. They've had a pretty tough schedule to start the season, and you wonder if they're as bad as their record reflects, or is it just that they've played the best teams in the league and they're not quite the best team in the league. I think this is kind of a good to play a team that's probably closer to their equal to see what's going on. But from that perspective, I'd shy away from most players from a fantasy perspective in this game because I just don't really know what either team is doing, in my leagues. That being said, I drafted Will Fuller. I think it's a decent matchup for the Vikings. Will Fuller's been hot and cold so far to start the season. If you believe in trends, he was bad week 2, so he's probably going to be bad again week 4. But I think he could put together back-to-back good games. There was a little injury situation in week 2, so I'm not going to hold that against him. But what about you guys? Who do you like in this one?
You want me to start because it's your team, Marcus? What do you want?
No, I can start.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna pick the Vikings, of course, to win the game. As far as fantasy players, Deshaun Watson. He's a stud. Even without DeAndre Hopkins, he's still very talented. Vikings aren't really the best on defense. Third most passing yards to quarterback this year. Deshaun has thrown at least 250 yards in every game. He should have a decent game. If you are desperate at QB, Kirk Cousins is out there. He threw 3 touchdowns last week, but he did have 2 interceptions, I believe. I think so. I don't remember. I don't care to remember that game. But the Texans allowed the 4th most points to running backs, so Dalvin Cook is always a good option. Madison could get some run too, but I do think the Vikings can win this game.
All right, so I thought that the Vikings were going to win last week, and they should have won last week. They had that game, and, Gostkowski just came back and he started kicking, I felt like 80-yarders around the entire stadium there. He made, 5 field goals? But anyway, I don't feel the same this week, which it has nothing to do with the Vikings. It just has to do with Watson. He's going to get back on track this week. Obviously he's missing D-Hop. He's not looking like Deshaun Watson, but I think this week he's going to get into some sort of a groove. David Johnson's going to start up again this week. They had a really brutal schedule to start. I think this is kind of where he gets into his groove as well. But on the other side of things, I think the Vikings have a new Stephon Diggs and Justin Jefferson, who I talked up Justin Jefferson since the day he got drafted by the Vikings. I said to you day one, you have Stephon Diggs. There he is. He's going to take over that number 1 role as the receiver. I think he's going to be better than Thielen. I think that he has all the intangibles to be a stud in fantasy on that team. He was the biggest waiver wire claim this week, and I think he's going to be like a Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver when it's all said and done this year. It's going to be a high scoring game. I think you look at these two teams, they're known for defense, but it just isn't clicking this year. A lot of players are out on both sides. So as far as fantasy starts, I'm starting Justin Jefferson in daily and in, regular fantasy. Dalvin Cook, you have to start every single week. And then as far as Houston goes, I like Deshaun Watson and I like David Johnson this week. The wide receivers, if you want to have a sneaky waiver ad, Randall Cobb is actually, he's he's jumping in, and he's taking over a lot of reps that D-Hop left on the table.
Got in the end zone last week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
he's available in a ton of leagues. If you want to have someone as like a flyer in there, if you have an injured wide receiver,
maybe you have a Juju Smith-Schuster, maybe you have a Corey Davis, or someone like that whose game is currently postponed. That could be a decent option for you.
Yeah, and then the way that the fantasy leagues are working is a lot of things that are coming out. They're probably either going to play Monday at 5 o'clock or Tuesday at 6 or 7 p.m., so it won't be an issue. But they're saying that if you have a backup on your bench, that your commissioner can swap those points out with your starter who's on Pittsburgh or Tennessee, which is just weird. But Randall Cobb is a nice little ad because he's available in almost every league. So.
And you talked to Randall Cobb once. What was that, like 2 years ago? He's a nice fella.
Very nice guy.
He's a nice fella. So the little interstate of green connection there. Had to pick up our boy Randall Cobb from the Houston Texans. Let's head on over to Detroit. Both teams are 1-2 in this matchup. The New Orleans Saints on the road against Detroit. I think the Lions are pretty much outclassed here, but the Saints lost to the Raiders. They, had a very tough game against the Packers last week. I feel like both teams are teams that I don't really know how good they are. And I think the Saints are better than the Lions, but I can't quite gauge how good they are. And the Lions are a team that, I feel like on paper has talent, but is never really quite that good. And I can't figure them out to save my life. So the Saints are 4-point favorites in this one. Given my analysis of both teams, I wouldn't recommend betting it, but that's just kind of me personally. Maybe you guys feel differently. Why don't you break this one down? Marcus, let's start with you.
I feel the same way about the Lions, which you just said. I kind of feel like they're always that team every year. It's just like you never know like how good they're going to be or what their identity is. But I will say Drew Brees is a good option. Even without Michael Thomas, he put up good numbers. 3 touchdowns, no picks with no Michael Thomas. And, Michael Thomas might come back, so that helps him even more. Alvin Kamara, stud. Pencil him in every week except his bye week. Stafford, Galladay should be back. Marvin Jones and Hawkinson, so he'll have his full receiving core. He threw 3 touchdowns last week, and Saints secondary, they was having some issues. So Stafford, Detroit likes to throw the ball, so he definitely could have a big game. And I would throw out Emmanuel Sanders. If Michael Thomas is out, he can see a little uptick in targets. You can throw a little flyer out on him if you a little desperate on him.
Rich is shaking his head, but last week he was targeted 5 times. He had 15 fantasy points. He got in the end zone once.
Yeah, it's a desperation pick. If you got nothing else, I would throw him out there. I wouldn't be like pencil him in or anything like that.
Well, the only reason why I'm saying no to Emmanuel Sanders, I watched that entire game. It just until he was involved, I feel like on 3 total plays. Obviously, he made the most out of that touchdown. But with Drew Brees without Michael Thomas, doesn't look like Drew Brees. His stats are inflated, but you got to look at all his passes. He'll have 3-yard jump offs to Kamara. Kamara goes 50 yards.
He took one. Yeah.
It was a Barry Sanders run. That run with Kamara, that brought back like Barry Sanders memories for me. That's what Drew Brees does, though. He is this like a surgeon on the field. He'll throw 3 to 5 yard passes and just watch his players take off. If Jared Cook is out and Michael Thomas is out, I can see that Emmanuel Sanders at start. Especially Traquan Smith not doing anything to kind of gain a role with Michael Thomas not in there. But on the flip side of things, Matt Stafford, he would be, if he was on a different team, he would be in the playoffs every single year. They beat the Cardinals last week. He carries the team on his back. I think this game is going to be closer than what people think it will be. And you know how much I love the Saints. I would love to say it's going to be a blowout, but I just don't see it. If Michael Thomas is back, I think they will get to, more than 4 points. I think they'll beat the spread. But if he's not in there, this is going to be a field goal type game, just like how it was last week with the Cardinals. But yeah, the Saints need to win this. They can't go 1-3. And, teams who go 1-3 have a really hard time making the playoffs. So I think the Saints, are 2-2 after this week, but it's going to be a battle.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is going to be a relatively tight game. The Lions are a team that either plays up to or plays down to their competition. They're not the ones who set the tone, but they're either really good at like playing the better team really good or playing really bad if they're facing the really bad team. So they're playing a good team this week, and I think it should be a pretty fun one to watch in the 1 o'clock block. Let's talk about the 2-1 Cleveland Browns facing the 1-2 Dallas Cowboys. This is another game where I'm kind of throwing my hands up in the air. I don't really know what to expect here. The Cowboys have played sloppy. They've had a lot of turnovers so far this season. They had a pretty miraculous, comeback win against the choke artist formerly known as the Atlanta Falcons. But they really haven't looked good otherwise. Then you look at Cleveland, and they're 2-1. They haven't played the best teams. They're running the football very well. But they're not. I don't think they're anyone to write home about. But they're pretty talented across both sides of the football. They have some name players. I don't really know how to break this one down. I know the Cowboys can give up a lot of points, so I'd be inclined to start Nick Chubb, especially, Kareem Hunt is battling a little bit of an injury. I'd be inclined to start an Austin Hooper who he's just waiting to break out. He's just waiting. But I think this is a particularly good matchup, defensively for him. And I think this could be the week that he gets in the end zone. We'll find out. But let's pass it over to you guys. Rich, let's start with you. Cleveland at Dallas.
All right, so this is the game that I think Dallas puts it together. We talked about it before, how it's going to be the NFC East is going to be a complete toss-up, and it's going to be a bad division. I think the Dallas Cowboys win this game. I think that the way that they're going to win this game isn't going to be pretty. I think there's going to be a lot of mistakes on both sides, but I think, if I had to put Baker Mayfield against Dak Prescott and say who's going to make the mistake more often, I'm going to say Baker is going to make more mistakes, especially with Hunt being injured. Obviously Chubb is going to run, and he's going to have a great game. I mean, I'm going to start Nick Chubb and probably no one else on the Browns this week. And then on the flip side, you don't know who's going to break it open for the Cowboys as far as receivers go. Gallup had the great game last week. The week before, it's Lamb, it's Cooper. It's a wealth of talent they have. It's just they're not cohesive yet. I think this is the week that they become cohesive. I think all three wide receivers have a good game. I think Ezekiel Elliott will have a good game, which means that Dak Prescott's going to have a good game. So I think you could start all 5 of those guys against the Browns. So obviously don't start the Browns defense. The spread is 4. I think Dallas wins by more than 4.
I agree. I think they're probably a touchdown better than Cleveland. But I would be interested in this game in some kind of a parlay situation. Take a look at what the over-unders are for, an Ezekiel Elliott yardage-wise, Amari Cooper to get in the end, something like that, and maybe string together a couple of player props for a better payout, because not for nothing, the odd spread, for the points isn't not the best. I think that you have more opportunity to win some more money here by taking advantage of, I think, the Cowboys having a pretty rock solid offensive performance.
Plus 54 is frightening, that number. I mean, when the over under is that high, I don't know what to pick. I wouldn't pick the over under in this game just because you don't know who's going to suck.
Oh, no, not points wise. I meant like yardage over under for like an Ezekiel Elliott, like a player prop. Yeah, I wouldn't touch the over under points wise in this one with your money. Marcus, anything in addition to this one?
I would say start CeeDee Lamb. I'm on same path as Rich. Start the skill players on Dallas. CeeDee Lamb, it's a good one. Browns defense gives up a lot of yards to slot receivers, and CeeDee Lamb, pretty good rookie. Baker Mayfield could potentially have a good game. Dallas gave up 9 total touchdowns to the Seahawks and the Falcons to their quarterback. So it's not like their pass defense is anything special. So those are 2 people If you have him, start him. If you got someone better than Baker, start him. If not, I think Baker could have a potentially decent game.
So let's start with you on this one, Marcus, and let's head on over to Cincinnati, who is hosting Gardner Minshew and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jags looked really bad on Thursday Night Football last week. Keelan Cole got me a few garbage points before just getting knocked out of the game, which was cool. Minshew, in the battle of mustache versus beard, lost to the Dolphins. And Ryan Fitztragic. And listen, they have an opportunity to bounce back against the Bengals, who are 0-2-1. They couldn't string it together last week in overtime. I think there was some pretty poor play calling in overtime last week on the Bengals side of things. But I'll give it to them. They fought a team that I think, many people probably thought were better than them in the Philadelphia Eagles, and they fought. And I still think that this is an opportunity for Burrow to get that first NFL win. But I can also see the argument being made that the Jacksonville Jaguars can bounce back pretty good after a disappointing Thursday Night Football. They've had a long week. They've had a chance to get healthy, rest up, and go out and play a good game against Cincy. And Burrow might be frustrated by the fact that he hasn't been able to get that win yet, since entering the NFL. The Bengals are 3-point favorites. So, Marcus, let's kick it over to you. Who do you like in this?
I'm going to go Bengals in this. I like your boy Joe Burrow. He's been slinging it. He's at 300 yards in back-to-back games. They're definitely not, hiding him and holding him back. They're just letting him let it rip. He's had at least 20 points in every game this year, 20 fantasy points. Jags have allowed fifth most points to quarterbacks this season. And Tyler Boyd, his numbers are increasing every game, fantasy points and actual statistics. James Robinson is, running all over the place for Jacksonville. But I think the Bengals take this, and I'll go out on a limb and say A.J. Green doesn't look like he's 100 years old. He may look somewhat decent, but I think Tyler Boyd comes out as the top receiver in the passing game.
All right. Well, I still think A.J. Green's basically going to take a turd at the 50-yard line.
Yeah, I know.
But I agree with everything else. I think that the Bengals are going to have a great game. I think Jacksonville in week 1, they overperformed, and what you saw against the Dolphins was kind of what they are as a team. There's not a lot of talent on that roster, and they're kind of in rebuild mode. I like Minshew, but at the end of the day, beards are better than mustaches. If you just have a beard, you look Amish. If you just have a mustache, you look like a diddler. So I'll take the beard. As far as the Bengals go, I really like what T. Higgins is doing. His connection with Burrow is spot on, and Boyd, like you said, those would be two that I would start. Higgins is really good if you have him in Dynasty, because you can have him for a long time. Boyd, you can start in all formats. And then Burrow, again, I think you can start in all formats too. The only guy on Jacksonville that I'm touching is James Robinson. He's putting up crazy numbers. He came out of nowhere. He is kind of like the Arian Foster of this year. I would start him in daily. I would start him in Dynasty. I would start him in redraft. I would start him in everything. But Cincinnati, I think, wins by more than 3. I think this is going to be a really good game for them.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Burrow in this one. He's been very exciting so far this season, and I think he's going to get that first NFL win. So this should be a fun one. You guys mentioned all the key players. Mixon has been kind of disappointing this season from a running back perspective. I think if you have the ability to start someone else, maybe you should consider it. But the Dolphins running back, whose name is eluding me, had a good game last week. So maybe it's Mixon's turn too to have a good game. We'll find out. Let's head on over to Chicago. The 3-0 Nick Foles led Chicago Bears.
Nick Foles
are facing the 2-1 Phillip Rivers led Indianapolis Colts. And I have no idea what to expect because it's a new quarterback starting for the Bears. They have talent across their roster. With the right guy at the trigger, they could be good. He looked great in relief last week, but that doesn't always carry over to the starting role the following week. And the Colts have looked pretty good. I mean, minus a week one, right, where they lost. I mean, they've looked really good back-to-back weeks. Phillip Rivers has learned how to win in September. It'll be October come this game, so his little allergy will be done for. I think this is going to be a pretty fun one to watch. From a fantasy perspective, Marcus, let's start with you. Who are the key players?
I would say sit Montgomery. I think he's going to get more touches because Cohen tore his ACL, but the Colts defense is pretty tough. No individual running back has had more than 63 yards on his team, and I think that could continue. Phillip Rivers, I mean, last week with the Jets, you can't really count that one. I mean, they were scoring all types of ways on the Jets. So you would expect him, coming in, he was going to throw for like 350, 3 touchdowns, but Xavier Rose touchdown and a whole bunch of other stuff. But Phillip Rivers, I mean, you can start him, but I mean, I'm not too sure about starting him. T.Y. Hilton, I'm not too sure about starting him. He hasn't looked good this year. I'll probably sit him. Chicago hasn't allowed a wide receiver touchdown, and he hasn't had more than 53 yards in any game this year, and he has no touchdowns this year either. So T.Y. is a big name in the pass game. I would sit him. In Montgomery, I would definitely sit him too.
All right. So
This
is going to sound weird, but I felt like the Colts didn't play as good as what they scored last week. I think that they won or are winning despite having Phillip Rivers. Obviously, having 2 pick sixes and, Taylor running all over the place, we knew that they were going to beat the Jets. But I don't think that Phillip Rivers looked crisp. And, T.Y. Hilton, like you said, he's not looked good at all. This game is a pick-em, and it really is a pick-em. Because Nick Foles could be Super Bowl Nick Foles, or he can be, what he is on every team not named the Eagles and last game. So
he's like Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. So for this game, I mean, as far as fantasy options go, Nick Foles loves Jimmy Graham. Like, he loves him with all his heart. He's time.
I do too.
You're the only one that likes Jimmy Graham. But, I mean, as far
it was a great year that 1 year he was good. It was a great year.
That's the one. But, I mean, he's available in a lot of leagues. I know tight end is kind of, rare to hit on. But, Jimmy Graham and Nick Foles, that's a match made in heaven. He also really likes Allen Robinson, which is good for me because I have Allen Robinson in a lot of leagues. I feel more confident with Nick Foles throwing to Allen Robinson than I did with, Mitch Trubisky. He also likes Anthony Miller. Basically, Nick Foles loves to throw the ball, which, again, for Montgomery, I agree with you. I would sit Montgomery just simply because it's not a good option this week. On the Colts side of thing, I really love Mo Alley Cox. Tight end that came out of nowhere. He's kind of like James Robinson of tight ends this year. He scored against the Jets. He scored the week before. I think he might have scored every week. He's going to score this week too because, like you said, they don't give up wide receiver touchdowns. They're going to give up tight end touchdowns. So he'd be my big start on the Colts side along with Taylor, and that's it. I wouldn't start T.Y. this week at all.
Yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. I think we're going to have to wait and see from the Chicago side of things. Like, I know Foles likes to sling it, but I would be cautious starting players from the Bears offense because just new quarterback, you never quite know what you're going to get. If you're in a situation where you have to, and I think it could pan out well, but I would take a wait-and-see approach personally. The Colts are 2.5-point favorites. I think the Bears actually win this one. So, if you feel like betting this game, go for it, but I wouldn't. And that's my advice here on Daily to Dynasty. Let's head to the last game of the 1 o'clock block. The Arizona Cardinals, 2-1, facing off against the Panthers at 1-2. Quite frankly, I don't think the Panthers defense is good enough in this one. I think the Cardinals are pretty much set for a really good offensive performance. I know Kyler Murray had a off game last week. He's allowed to have that. He's a young quarterback. I think he's going to bounce back, and I think he's going to have a good game against a weaker defense. And all your guys are at play here. Andy Isabella got in the end zone twice last week. with Christian Kirk's injury. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the Christian Kirk injury situation because it looks like that Kyler Murray likes slinging it to Mr. Isabella. And if that's the case, he might sneak his way into my lineup, especially I got to keep an eye on the Devontae Adams injury situation. So there could be a little late last minute ad here. And I think, Isabella is someone, if he's available in your leagues, he probably is if you're not in a dynasty league. Well, maybe not at this point, but if he is, go pick him up because he could potentially be a favorite target of Kyler Murray. And from the Panthers side of things, listen, Robbie Anderson has been having a really good season so far. He's putting up fantasy points. He's doing pretty good. The Panthers are moving the ball offensively, but there's not a lot on that side of things that I like outside of Robbie Anderson. What about you guys? Let's start with Marcus.
Robbie Anderson, former Jet, living it up.
My man.
Murray and Hopkins, you can pencil them in. Good starts every week. Murray is headed towards a breakout season. Hopkins is Hopkins. He's going to do what he does. Mike Davis from the Panthers, 13 carries, 46 yards, 8 catches, 45 yards, and a touchdown. Giving you points from receiving and rushing. Cardinals defense has allowed at least 12 PPR points to 3 different players this year. He can be a good option this year or this game for the Panthers. Like Craig said, it's not much on the Panthers. As long as Christian McCaffrey is out, you kind of just have to I hope Robbie Anderson has a good game. I hope Mike Davis has a good game. So I would say Mike Davis on the Panthers, and you can pencil in Murray and Hopkins, and you can take a chance on Isabella if you don't have a better option for a flex.
Literally nothing to add. All the players you guys said are exactly who I was going to say. So you win.
From a bet perspective here, I'm looking at FanDuel Sportsbook. So the Cardinals 3.5-point favorites, but when you look at the odds, it's plus 100 as opposed to a minus 110, 125. So I like that. I think the Cardinals win this one. I think they win it by more than 3.5 points, and you actually win a little bit of money here as opposed to just like $5 on your $10 bet. You could double your money.
I'm for that. Yeah, Cardinals will win by more than 3.5. I mean, the Hopkins injury is a little concerning that he didn't practice some this week, but in the game he's only going to catch 12 this week. I'm sorry, almost 14 or 16.
Maybe he'll find an end zone. I think he has 1 touchdown.
Well, he missed it by a yard. I mean, he had all the good intentions.
He's turning into Julio.
Yeah, but he gets like 15 catches. I mean, it evens out from a fantasy perspective. Let's head into the 4:00 block here. I think we're gonna watch a murder in Los Angeles with the Rams taking on the 0-3 Giants. I don't know what else to say in that one. I think the Rams D line is just gonna bully the Giants around. They don't really have any weapons to speak of in New York, and so I think the Rams defense is a must start. And if you got your Robert Woods, your Cooper Kupps, and your I mean the running back situation is still something to figure out in LA. But I think you could start any one of those guys. Rich, kick it to you.
I mean, let me just start by saying that the Rams should be undefeated right now, and the defensive pass interference thing at the end of the Bills game was a non-call. I just want to get that out. They should be 3-0. So, on the other hand, the Giants and the Jets are tied in the power rankings at 32. So, that's pretty good. They're tied for 32 because they're both terrible.
They're both so bad they couldn't differentiate.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to start anyone on the Giants, I'm always going to say it's going to be Slayton just because they're going to be down so much. But even he can't get the ball because Daniel Jones is underperforming so much this year. On the flip side, I love Robert Woods. I love Cooper Kupp. The hot hand right now at running back is Henderson. And the defense. The defense is going to put up crazy amounts of points this week. They're going to put up like a wide receiver number for you at defense. The spread is 9. It's going to be more than 9. I think this is going to be like a 31. I always go 31-10 when I think it's going to be a blowout. So I'm going to go 31-10 because it's going to be a blowout.
This one won't even be fun to watch. It's a 12.5-point spread, and I think the Rams get every bit of it and some. Marcus, any other players to watch in this one?
I would say Jared Goff. Nick Mullins almost threw for 400 yards on the Giants, and
Nicky Montana. I've been telling everybody. Nick Mullins, the man.
Jared Goff has better weapons than him, so he can definitely have a good game against the Giants. Slayton, I will sit him. I mean, he's not doing well, but it's not due to his talent; it's due to his team.
If you had to start anyone, like Gunji,
I mean, if you had to,
Giant, it would be
but still, I mean, he's not doing well, and he's going to have Jalen Ramsey on him. So, if you have to start him, throw him in there. But if you got somebody else,
odds are you don't have to. Like,
you don't have.
It's not like he's DeAndre Hopkins. You know what I mean? Like you have someone else that you don't have, and if you don't.
He's bad at drafting.
Yeah,
and Ramsey should be on Tate. I don't think he could be on Slayton. Slayton's a slot guy.
Him and Tate are going to fight. Didn't he used to date Tate's sister?
Yeah, but that's why I want it to happen.
And then I think he cheated on her while she was pregnant or something.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That should be the matchup then. I mean, it's going to be UFC in the NFL. I'm for that. Make Slayton go on some scrub.
It's like the Andre Johnson fight.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so good.
Andre Johnson won that fight.
What was it Finnegan? I think the guy named.
Yeah, Cortland Finnegan.
Yeah, from the Texas. Yeah.
That was my dude.
Or the Odell fight.
Yeah,
he was going at it.
Not as good.
When Odell ran into the kicking thing, he ran. Yeah. He fought the metal bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. Let's talk about the undefeated Buffalo Bills. Who I don't think they should be undefeated either. But you can't say they haven't been playing good football. They also haven't been playing that good at teams, but they've been playing good football. The Rams were probably closer to their level, and I think the Raiders, again, are probably closer to their level. They've yet to face a marquee team in the NFL. So I'm still kind of waiting to see how they do against a better team before I'm, going to buy into the fact that they're one of the top teams in the NFL. The Raiders, they're interesting to me. They looked great against the Saints. I think they've looked okay in their other matchups. They're a team that I find relatively tough to read. They got beat pretty bad by New England last week. So I don't really know. I know Josh Allen is a pretty safe start this week. Stephon Diggs has looked good in pretty much every single game. He's a pretty safe start to me. But I have a hard time reading both of these teams. And because of that, it kind of leads me to shy away from anything bets-wise or fantasy-wise, just because I don't have a good grasp on who's actually good on these squads. So, Rich, you're looking at me like I'm crazy. So let's throw it to you. Who do you like in this one?
So my sneaky start of the week, for any game, is Hunter Renfrow this week from the Raiders. And that's simply because Ruggs is out. Bryan Edwards is not going to play. They can't rely on Josh Jacobs 100% of the time. And the only other real option is Waller or Nelson Aguilar, which I'm surprised he's on any team. So for me, Hunter Renfrow, he is the Julian Edelman of the Raiders. He's consistent. He catches everything thrown at him. I think he honestly is the best receiver on this team right now. And you're going to see later that he's in my daily lineup as well. He's cheap. He's available in most leagues, and I would definitely put him in my flex this week. With that being said, Buffalo is going to be 4-0. I just don't see any way that they lose this game. Josh Allen's going to have a good game. He's probably going to fumble twice, but he'll throw 4 touchdowns because that's his talent. I like Stephon Diggs. Zach Moss did practice this week, but I think Singletary is going to be the one that has the hot hand in this game. But yeah, Buffalo, the spread is, I think we're on different spreads here, but mine says 3.
Mine says 3 as well.
I think Buffalo can cover that spread, especially with all the weapons being down for the Raiders. So Buffalo 4-0, start Hunter Renfrow, and be happy.
Marcus, any additional words of wisdom?
I'm with you on Hunter Renfro. He's their number one option, really, because of all the injuries. Him and Waller. A name that wasn't mentioned, I'll throw out Cole Beasley. If John Brown is hurt and he doesn't go, Cole Beasley could step up and have a good game. He's had 20 targets so far in 3 games. He's caught 15 of them for 228 yards. So John Brown isn't there. Him and Diggs can be the 1-2 punch in the receiving game. So he could potentially have a good game.
Beasley's a guy with some talent too, so I like that addition as well. Now, my surprise of the week is that this isn't Sunday Night Football, but the New England Patriots face off against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Tom Brady is gone.
Cam Newton, Super Cam. I mean,
it's not the GOAT though. It's not
the GOAT, but he's played his fair share of prime time.
It's not the current GOAT against the guy who people think will be the GOAT.
But I mean, listen, I'd watch Patrick Mahomes at any hour, but 8:20 and Patrick Mahomes is like a red
jelly.
Yeah, I mean, like it's perfect. Not this week though. 425. I think this is an interesting matchup. The Patriots defensively are, a good squad. They're able to run the football and do some things offensively that I don't know if the Chiefs have seen yet this season. They faced Lamar Jackson. Him and Cam are different style runners. Cam can really bruise you when he runs the football. Lamar is more of a speedy runner. And I think that on the wide receiver side, the Patriots receivers are more reliable than the weapons in Baltimore. That being said, after watching the Chiefs dismantle what's supposed to be one of the best teams in the AFC East or AFC North, AFC in general, I have a hard time believing that they do not win this one. Andy Reid's going to be drawing the plays on his face shield, and it's going to be a grand old time. So, Marcus, let's start with you on this one. Who do you like in this from a fantasy perspective?
I would say Rex Burkhead. He had a good game last week with 3 touchdowns, I believe. If James White and if the 2 running backs don't make the game, they don't play, he can be up for another heavy workload. He had 11 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown in 2 games. He can be a dual threat running and catching. And Julian Edelman, 2 wide receivers that scored at least 15 points against Kansas City. It's a good chance they're going to be playing from behind, which means a lot of passing, which means Edelman in the sure hands could get a lot of targets, a lot of catches. Other side of the ball, start the usuals. I mean, there's really nothing too deep to discuss against Kansas City. Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, so forth and so on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little concerned about Edelman just based on how they contained Hollywood. Edelman had a down game last week. The week before, he had 179 yards, but he was going against that bum Jamal Adams who can't cover my dad. This is a little different. So, I mean, I think that Kansas City wins this game. I think this is the game where you see that, it could be more Brady than Bill. But, I mean, the opponent that they're going against, I don't know if anyone's going to beat Kansas City this year. As far as New England goes, I don't think I could start anyone this week. Not a single player. And I love Julian Edelman. I need to, have him sit one more week and then be confident in starting him next week. Kansas City, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey. I think McCole Hardman is going to start to show that he's going to be the clear-cut number 2. The way that he played against the Ravens, I think they're going to give him a lot more looks, and he's going to probably jump Sammy Watkins soon. So I think Hill and Hardman are going to be my wide receivers that I go with. Spread is 7. I think that the Patriots normally cover spreads, but it's not going to happen this week. I think that the Chiefs win by at least 10.
And I think, and that's interesting because, we mentioned the odds before. You can double your money plus 100 with that -7 spread for the Chiefs, at least on FanDuel Sportsbook as of Wednesday night at 9:53 p.m. But I think the over-under is this is that magic number, 52.5. I think both these teams can score some points. But I'm inclined to take the under here. I think the Chiefs can get into 30, but after watching what they did to the Ravens offense, I don't know how many points the Patriots are gonna put up. Food for thought. I don't like messing around with the over-unders, though. But this one, I think, is a little bit interesting. Let's head to this premier Sunday Night Football game. Just really a top-notch matchup. Clearly the best game of the weekend. The 0-2-1 Philadelphia Eagles against the 2-1 San Francisco 49ers. I'll be totally transparent. I don't know what the injury situation is like. I don't know who's healthy on San Francisco. All that being said, I still think they beat the Eagles. It doesn't really matter. The Eagles have looked dreadful all season long. It is a chance for them to turn it around against the kind of beat-up San Francisco team. But I don't know. I think the Eagles are just that bad. But that's just kind of a gut feeling because, honestly, I haven't looked at this one. So, Marcus, let's kick it over to you. Give some better analysis than I just did.
I would say Philly side as far as fantasy. You can start Greg Ward. He might be worth the start. Philly is just all types of injured. Deshaun is hurt. Alshon Jeffrey is hurt. Jalen Reagor is hurt. Dallas Goedert is hurt. I mean, he kind of is the number one receiver by default. So it's going to be Greg Ward, Zach Ertz, and Miles Sanders are their three weapons. So he got to get some type of target share, right?
You would think.
I mean, it's all they really have. I mean, if you're desperate, I'll throw him out there. You know, he had 8 receptions, 72 yards last week. Not a bad game. The receiver for San Francisco, Brandon, I can't pronounce it. Ayuk, yeah. Surprisingly, Philly has been really good against top wide receivers this season, giving up a combined 12 catches, 101 yards, and no touchdowns to all number one receivers in the first 3 games. So I don't know if I would start him, but I might take a chance on Greg Ward if I'm a little desperate or if I'm banged up also because injuries are piling up in the NFL. Every week is like ACL Sunday. So if you got a spot open, you need someone there, throw in Greg Ward. He might be worth it.
All right, so I went the flip side of that this week, and I picked up Brandon Ayuk, and I'm starting him in my flex, just simply because I think Debo is going to come back. And even if Debo doesn't come back, Kittle is going to play. So I think, Kittle is going to be their number one option. Ayuk can do it all. I mean, he is kind of like, I'm going to call him Tyreek Light, just simply because he is a gadget player, and he can also catch the ball just as well. He's going to be a big part of that offense going forward. It's going to be the big 3 between him, Debo, and Kittle. And Mostert might be back this week. Who knows? Jimmy G is not going to play, but I don't think it's going to matter against this Philly team. This is the worst I've ever seen the Eagles play. The Eagles have been good for a while. You look at they had good quarterback play for the last, I don't know how long, 15 years. So I mean, this is the worst that Wentz has ever looked. This is the worst that the coaching staff has ever looked. They just look defeated. San Francisco is all banged up too, but they're making the best out of it because they have the next man up mentality because that's how Shanahan works. So you can start McKinnon this week, start Kittle this week, start Ayuk this week. And on the flip side, the only one I would touch is Miles Sanders. Even Ertz is kind of having, an off season so far.
You mean a typical season?
Yeah,
typical for you. But I mean, I'm not an Ertz hater like you, but the spread right now is 7. I don't know. Philly keeps it close, but as far as the players go, definitely 49er heavy on this one.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I wouldn't bet this game personally. I just think with the spread where it is, listen, both teams are really beat up. I don't know who's necessarily going to have a good game. I would stay away from this one money-wise. Let's head to Monday Night Football because this is a surprisingly fun matchup despite what the records would tell you. 0-3 Atlanta Falcons at the 3-0 Green Bay Packers. I don't think there's a more exciting offense in the NFL right now than the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers is at that same level as Russell Wilson. I mean, he's slinging it left and right. He's looking unstoppable. Okay, Vikings. Now, listen, he's keeping the first round draft pick on the bench. He's, just Alan Lazard looks like a monster. They just beat up on the Saints without Devontae Adams. It was Devontae Adams who it didn't matter. They were just slinging touchdowns left and right. The Falcons, we all know, can score points. They can compete offensively, but there is something in their genetic makeup where in the fourth quarter they don't like to hold on to leads. I don't even think they'll get a lead in this one. I think it'll be a shootout. I think you can start almost anybody across the board fantasy-wise. I think both of these teams are going to put up a lot of points. But I think the Packers win this one. And this is one where the over-under is super high, and I'm inclined to take the over because I think this is going to be a shootout, even with the over being at 56.5. I probably won't bet it, but I'm pretty inclined to say that this will be about 60 points total. I think both teams get into 30. Honestly, I think it'll be a fun one. Rich is looking at me like I'm crazy, but I think there'll be a lot of points in this one. What about you guys? What do you think here?
I really hope Julio plays. I think, if Julio plays, it's going to be even a better game than what it would be without him, obviously. But, like you said, Atlanta is a good team. They need to completely gut their defense, including their defensive head coach in Dan Quinn. They just need to start over next year. If they have even a half good coach, I think this would be a much different record. They make a lot of bad calls throughout the game, which is why they're 0-3. And on the flip side, the Packers have one of the best young, minds in the league right now. So Aaron Rodgers is having fun. You can see that he has no limitations with slinging it. I love Alan Lazard. Valdez Scantling, I mentioned last week, he's a really good, number 3 option. And then Aaron Jones obviously just lights it up every single week. And on the flip side, I hope Julio plays. Calvin Ridley is putting up, wide receiver 1 numbers still. Gage is injured, so let's see what happens with him. And Gurley needs to step up. He had an off game last week. If they have any shot in this game, Gurley needs to, burn the house down. But he probably won't. Packers will win, obviously. That's what I'm going with.
Marcus, what about you?
Rich pretty much said everything I was going to say. And I agree with the Todd Gurley part. They got to get Todd Gurley going so they can control the clock. You got to keep Rodgers off the field. He's playing like a man possessed this season, unfortunately. But I definitely think Todd Gurley needs to step up to diversify their offense. The Falcons seem like they're cursed or something. 2 weeks in a row giving up big leads. They gave up a big lead in the Super Bowl. Do y'all remember the Super Bowl where the Falcons guy won Man of the Year and then he got arrested the night before the Super Bowl? You remember that?
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that. What a story, though.
He got arrested the night before the Super Bowl for trying to pick up a prostitute or something.
Man of the Year.
He won the Man of the Year. So it was like the Falcons are just I don't know, it was in their DNA or something. They're cursed.
He needed the War Man of the Week.
Yeah, apparently. But yeah, Packers should win this, unfortunately. I hope they don't, but I think they can win.
Listen, man, the Vikes are 0-3 at this stage. You're not winning this.
Yeah, I'm going for top 10 pick in the draft at this
point.
Number one.
Yeah. You got to fight the Giants, though. New York
is going to win that battle.
We got to fight the Giants and we got to fight the Vikings, apparently. Yeah. So I don't think we're going to discuss the Steelers-Titans game. It's still to be determined. It's looking like they'll probably play Monday or Tuesday, but if you have the key guys, go ahead and play them, and if not, whatever. I don't know. I don't know what you want me to tell you. COVID-19, I can't predict it. But this has been a real fun show, guys. NFL Week 4 is upon us. Let's talk about our FanDuel lineups, Rich. We put these together a little bit before the show. I got to click a few buttons to make this happen here, and we'll see which one of our lineups pops up. This one looks like my lineup, so I'll take you through it first. I like Russell Wilson from the Seahawks a lot. No surprise there. I like Jonathan Taylor on the Colts. I think he's been running the football pretty well. I think he looks pretty good. James Robinson, you mentioned before, budget player. He's really appeared out of nowhere. I think he's going to have a good game. Donkey Kong Metcalf. I'm aware DK doesn't stand for Donkey Kong, but it makes me laugh. DK Metcalf, Will Fuller. Will Fuller, I think he gets some good value at 6,100. I think he's going to have a pretty good game against Minnesota. I have Amari Cooper in here as well. We mentioned before all the Cowboy receivers are primed, we think, to have a pretty big game. I went with the number one option. I like Tyler Higbee a lot for the Rams against the Giants. The Giants are just a mess of a team, and Higbee had 3 touchdowns the other week. He pretty much just looked unstoppable. I think he's a good tight end. I think he'll get in the end zone once again. Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs 2.0, you know what to do. And the Los Angeles Rams defense against the New York Giants offense. I think they are going to score all kinds of points. $600 in my salary remaining. I like the lineup. I might tweak it a little bit between now and Sunday. I have a little bit of budget to play with, but that is what I am going with. And now, Rich, let me press a few more buttons. We'll throw up your lineup, and you can talk it through.
All right, so a quarterback, I got Joe Burrow. We talked about it before. He's going to get his first win in the NFL. He's going to throw for at least 250 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's not the most expensive quarterback, so it gives you a little room in other positions. Alvin Kamara, he's battling, Russell Wilson right now for MVP. He is the do-everything person on that team. He catches every ball. He's going to put up crazy numbers every single week. James Robinson, he's putting up very great numbers for Jacksonville. He's the only guy on that team right now that's kind of worth a start in every format whatsoever, and he's cheap. I don't think he's going to be cheap for long. DeAndre Hopkins, best wide receiver in the NFL as far as anything. I mean, he is a PPR machine. Even though he missed, practice, he's still going to get in that game. He's still going to catch at least 12 balls. Mike Evans, with Godwin being out, he is the main show in town. They also said that Fournette is out while we were recording the show. So, there's even more option right there for Mike Evans. He's going to light it up. Justin Jefferson, I might have a man crush on Justin Jefferson. He is cheap still, very cheap. And he's going to put up wide receiver 1 numbers for the Vikings. Mo Alley-Cox, also a very cheap option. I don't know why he's so cheap because he's putting up top-tier tight end numbers so far this year. Phillip Rivers loves the guy. He finds the end zone often, and he is definitely a must-start this week against Chicago, who doesn't give up wide receiver touchdowns like Marcus said. And then my sneaky ad of the week, my sneaky start of the week is Hunter Renfrow. He's the wide receiver 1 this week in Las Vegas. The Bills are going to put up, points. They're going to have to compete from behind this week. And, Las Vegas loves to target Hunter Renfrow, and he catches everything thrown his way. And then let's end it with Buffalo Ravens completely dismantling the Washington football team. They don't have a shot in heck. It's going to be a blowout. So I like all these players. They're not like marquee. I mean, obviously 3 of them are with Kamara, Hopkins, and Evans. But everyone else is kind of, the sneaky guy that's going to put up, points this week. And I like lineups like that.
So this is Rich's sneaky lineup. I think this is a fun one. I might throw that into a 50-50 and see what hits. But guys, so that's going to be it for our lovely little program tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in, whether it was on YouTube. Leave a comment in the player below. Give it a like, subscribe to the channel, all kinds of great content coming your way. If you listen to this thing via podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor.fm, thank you for doing so. Make sure you subscribe, leave us a nice rating wherever you're listening. It helps the show out immensely. And then, of course, we want to help our partners over at the Underdog newsletter. If you love Underdog stories, and if you're a sports fan, odds are you do. You're going to love our friends at the Underdog newsletter. Every week, they sift through hundreds of articles, videos, and podcast interviews. And then every Tuesday morning, they send out a bite-sized rundown of only the best stories you can find all in one place. You can subscribe to the newsletter at jokermag.com/newsletter. Follow them on Twitter at JokerMagHQ. Plus, our partnership with Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is a daily fantasy sports app for player props. They've eliminated the need to do countless hours of research because they only ask you about the top-tier athletes in a respective sport. Thrive has prop bets for almost every sport, and each prop has a fantasy point total associated with the over or under based on its likelihood to occur. The more points a selection is worth, the riskier it is. Rack up the most points to win a share of the prize pool. Thrive has awarded over $1.3 million in prizes since launching in 2018. When you sign up, use the promo code Daily to Dynasty, and you will receive an instant $20 bonus on your first deposit of $20 or more. Head on over to the App Store, the Play Store, or their website at thrivefantasy.com. And guys, that's it. Daily to Dynasty, NFL Week 4. Thank you so much for listening, watching, however you consumed this media. Thank you for doing so. And for Rich and Marcus, we'll talk to you next week.